Welcome back to Mindful Endeavors. I am your host, New Age Alchemist, and today joining us we have Nicole from Nikki Wickens Outdoors. So really quick before we go on, as always, I want to make sure that we let people know that we're not medical professionals and we're not necessarily giving medical advice. We're just here having conversations around the topic of mental health and other lighthearted topics like the outdoors, cooking, anything else that could fit as a way to mentally distress yourself from anything that, any kind of mental stress. We encourage you to seek help if you do need it. And we also encourage the conversations to continue, wherever you see fit. All right. So, yeah, Nicole. So, very happy to have you on. I met you through the fishing community through Instagram. So, that was kind of interesting. And yeah, really quick, introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Nicole, but I go by Nikki. I just recently started going by Nikki Wickens Outdoors. I kind of switched it up because I wanted to feel, I guess, give it more of a professional feel without it being professional. Just something that was more catchy. Something for my YouTube channel, which I just started. I've been fishing my whole life, but this whole social media stuff it's all new. I've been doing my own business. I do photography. I've been doing it since 2012 professionally. And that's had its ups and downs, but it's taught me a lot about social media, which I've directly applied to fishing and have seen a lot of growth with that. I went to school for fine arts and then I switched over to business because I feel like I have too much of a business mindset to sit, and as much as I love photography and all that, I would never want to teach it. It's more I want to run something. So being able to take my business mindset and entrepreneur mindset and apply it to fishing has been pretty cool. I guess I could go further with that, but just taking my business mindset and applying it to fishing and applying what I've learned through social media with my photography business and applying it towards fishing has been kind of cool to see how it contrasts each other. There's a lot that it has in common, and then the fishing world also is a whole different world. So it's been a really fun, exciting experience, but also pretty intimidating.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating, even for me, because again, I know I've mentioned this in a prior episode. I used to be very, very anti social media. I had an Instagram. That's probably the only thing that I've really had the most consistent, I guess. I had Facebook, but at a certain point I deleted it. At one point it got hacked and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I recently reactivated my Snapchat, so now I have a Snapchat. And yeah, so it's just it's really scary, especially doing the fishing stuff when when you set your profile to public, that
Right.
kind of, gets a little terrifying at that point. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's you never know what kind of crazies you might meet or anything like that. Because that was the thought that was going in my head. I don't want anybody to start stalking me or whatever. And it's not like I'm anything special, but you never know.
Right. No, yeah, I relate for sure. I've bounced back and forth a lot between private and public, especially before I kind of changed my profile to look more professional. I kept bouncing between private and public just to see how quickly you gain followers public versus private. And I know me personally, this could sound really petty, but if I go to follow someone back and it says requested, I just hit on. I don't even bother because I don't know. I get sketched out by private profiles. I don't know. I just for whatever reason they just don't sit right with me. And I get that some people do it for some people that have certain jobs that work with kids, for instance. You need to have your stuff on private so that people can't just interact with you. But with fishing, I'm not too concerned about it. Like you said, safety, especially as a girl, that can be very intimidating to me because luckily, you can see who views your Instagram stories and stuff, but you never really know who's behind a profile.
Mm-hmm.
You can think you do, but we have friends in our fishing community that we've discussed before, their profiles have been hacked. And had they have not said, hey, this isn't me, we would have thought something happened and they made a new profile. So safety-wise, there's just a lot that goes behind all these different profiles, and it can be very intimidating for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've noticed as well. That's gone up. Like, I think when people try to do a giveaway on Instagram, you immediately see like 4 or 5 accounts pop up like with fake names. Like they'll add like an extra dot somewhere or an extra S, and they think they're really slick, but you can really catch on to it really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But you've seen that. I've seen that a lot. And it's to a point where it's like, okay, now I'm definitely like concerned about running a giveaway because somehow I've seen people getting like people that have had a massive amount of following, like probably like 10K accounts that have been blocked because of some hacking issues, and then they can't. I mean, they can't go to. I don't know. They can't get their account back,
Right.
mostly because either customer support is a little unresponsive, or they can't really tell who's the real account, which is kind of weird. But
Right.
anyway, that's I've been kind of worried about like doing a giveaway, which kind of it's just bad timing that I found a reel that I've had just stashed away somewhere because I'm cleaning up around my place, and I want to give it away, but I can't because you know I'm kind of concerned about somebody just hacking my stuff.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. The other day I found, because I have a couple totes worth of fishing stuff. My entire family fishes, so we have fishing stuff literally everywhere. And lately I've been organizing my stuff in like storage totes. And if I find something, I'll just like toss it in, and then eventually I'll get back to it and like go through that whole tote. Well, I found some good stuff, like a bunch of plastics that I've never used before. And I was like,
Mm,
oh, these would be really good in a giveaway. And I was like, but do I want to do that? Like, I'm all for like giving people things, like especially when it comes to fishing, if I can help someone else in that way, even if it's just like sending them something in the mail, like I love that. But when it comes to giveaways, like I've just seen it go wrong more times than right. But the flip side of that is I actually have won a couple giveaways. Some were like simple stuff as like plastics, and then I won a rod and reel through Ducket. So like expensive combos, I actually won. So like I've been on the receiving side of the giveaways and seen the benefits and have benefited from it. But then I've also interacted with people behind the scenes where they're running a successful giveaway, and again their account gets hacked. So it makes me a little on edge, that's for sure.
yeah, and it's kind of hard to really go. I think it's really hard to really grow your profile going private.
Right.
I mean, because I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not too much of an expert. Actually, probably not even an expert at all. But I think if you use your hashtags, like that's one of the things that I did learn from you is like how to hashtag. And but I think if you try doing that privately, you don't really come up in all the recents or anything like that. So
Right.
it's kind of one of those things where it's like, how do you got to like either create a different account that's just dedicated to what you're trying to do and don't put anything, um, private there. And but then it gets. I mean, I have 3 accounts that are for specific industries, and even I haven't even posted on the other 2, and even those just having them around is already like kind of a bit of a cluster mess. I don't want to say the F word, but you know, but yeah, it becomes a mess, and it's just 3 accounts, 2 of which I'm not really active on, and I
Right.
just don't want to have another one just for my private like life. So it's really weird because I don't really post a whole lot of things that are private just because I've always valued privacy, even just in my personal life.
Right.
Non social media related. But and plus, you never know who might take something and just use it in a negative way. And I mean, granted that we can go on and on about like what how Instagram or social media in general can be toxic, but there's definitely some good things that can come from it if used properly, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
businesses can advertise better. I mean, you kind of have your business account with the outdoors page, and you can market yourself there, and it's pretty relatively cheap, I want to say. I mean, it still costs time, but it depends on how much that's worth. And yeah, I mean, like that's really like what I think there is some value to it. Like, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is there's always going to be something negative or positive. It just depends on how you look at it. And when it comes to like I noticed the other day, I just follow your stuff when I see it. But like when I avidly went to your page, I didn't realize how quickly your following has grown. Like it's grown. And like I don't know if it's from these podcasts or hashtags or whatever, but it's just cool to see people that I've interacted with. Like now I just hit 2,500 followers, and I was like excited. And like I look at people that I've talked to you for on and off, what, like a year or so. I don't know, it's coming up around that time frame, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just cool to see how, if you actually keep up with people's growth on there, helping be a part of that, and even whether it's just like sharing someone's story or sharing someone's post to your story, like simple things like that can really make a difference. And I mean, it can be overdone, but in the same way, if people want to look at your stuff, they're going to look through every post. Worst case scenario, they're going to click off of it. Who cares? Like, at the end of the day, I do the same thing. If I see someone has like 15 things on their story, sometimes I make it 3 in and I'm like, something else. Like, I'm not offended if people aren't viewing that whole story. Like, it's cool to see who can view your story and take away from that. Like, okay, is it just random people? Is it consistent people? Noticing stuff like that. And then normally I'll go through, and the people who are consistent with viewing my stuff, I'll go through and be like, okay, have I liked any of their stuff recently? And try to like give back in that way. Because if they're going to support me, the least I can do is go like some of their posts.
Yeah.
So I definitely think there's a lot of pros and cons that you can take away from like internet interactions.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, like, really, realistically, like, if like, again, social media, for example, if we have the perception that it's going to be a toxic place, well, you have one or two. Well, you have one of three options. You can either play the game, or don't participate, or just spread some positivity, right? And like what you're doing is it's definitely something positive, where you definitely support people and they support you back. And that's kind of like the best thing about these situations, is that you can get a sense of community even though it's virtual.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked about, like, essentially eventually meeting up, either in Texas or up in New York or something, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I've met up through Instagram a bunch of other people fishing, and I've made a good, I don't know, few fishing buddies here and there. And it's great, like, it's something that we share. We share an activity that definitely brings us joy, definitely decompresses us mentally, and we just, obviously, we have fun with it, right, which is fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always awesome having a community and kind of just sharing those interests, a similar interest, right? And I think it's great. It's something that I feel like we need more of. I mean, granted that you have to be really careful, because, and it's not necessarily like malicious or anything like that, but sometimes personalities don't mix, like they just don't,
Right.
For whatever reason. And sometimes that's okay. Like, honestly, we have, I don't know, we're 350 million in this country. We're not all going to have the same personality, same interests, same hobbies. So we don't necessarily have to hang out buddy with each other, but at the very least, respect each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that I do appreciate about this, and that's kind of one of the things that definitely keeps me going.
Right.
And back to your whole thing about like growing. So I've definitely used, I've been part of other people's giveaways, mostly because sometimes I don't have time to really, run my own, just because it requires a good amount of energy and time. And so, I mean, there might be some kind of criticism, is like, well, most of your growth has been from giveaways, or your growth has been from giveaways, but okay, well, sure, that brings people to the door, but you have to eventually keep them there. So
Right.
if you're not doing that, it's, I mean, if you're doing that, if you're keeping them after the giveaway, then you're doing something right. I mean, that's what I'm taking it, right? So, yeah.
I think the hardest thing for me is I started, like, my page originally started just as like a basic girl Instagram. Sometimes it was pictures of like places I fish. Sometimes it was pictures with a fish. Sometimes it was just a bunch of selfies. And then I started gravitating more towards posting fishing pictures. And the more I did that, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not a super girly girl. So, like, me posting nonstop selfies just isn't like me. So, okay, I travel a lot, but like those kind of photos go to my photography page. I was like, so what am I doing with this Instagram account? Like, it felt boring to me. I didn't want to just like conform to like what everyone else was doing, because let's be honest, there's not a lot of, like, now there's more coming out, but there's not many girl Instagram accounts where they're like avid fisherwomen. Like, it's just not really there, and it's hard to find. And sometimes you'll find that, and it's like, it's just not dedicated to fishing, which is fine. I mean, I still follow them all the time, but I've noticed when I go back and forth, where if I post like my feed is almost all fishing pictures of some sort. I don't really add landscapes in at this point. If I take a scenic picture, it just goes to my story. But I've noticed if I change up what I'm posting, like, so for example, I posted about weight loss. And although I had a lot of supporters, it wasn't the content that people are used to, and my engagement dropped. So although it was a positive post, if you're consistent with something and then you add in something random, no matter what it is, it kind of throws people off. Like, when did I start following that account? And like, I do the same thing. Like, if I see, like, I followed the other day, I followed this girl on Instagram, and she was mainly fishing pictures. And all of a sudden, it showed a picture of her and I'm assuming her boyfriend. And I was like, when did I start following this person? And I thought about it. I was like, if I do stuff like that too, like, no wonder why people unfollow. Because you look at it, you're like, when did I follow this random couple that I've never seen before? But if you actually go to it, oh, okay, it's that girl that posted a fishing picture. So I feel like consistency is just really important, because as much as I'd like to update my personal life on it, I just have to pick and choose, because my following only really, let's be honest, they really only care about fishing. Like, people that have gotten to know, they care about my well-being. And like, if I post something about losing weight, like, they're there to support me. But all those random followers are like, I didn't follow a fitness page. What is this? So it's just frustrating, because I've been debating, like, do I start a page for fitness and like document stuff like that? Do I just put it on my story and just every now and then post it? Like, obviously, if I'm a fishing page, a lot of people aren't going to care to keep up if I start throwing in fitness. You know what I mean? Like, even if it can be uplifting, I feel like that's one of the negatives, is the people that love and support me from the start, they're engaging on that and going, great job. And then people that are new could be enthusiastic, but if they're not fitness people, they're just going to be like, okay. Like, unfortunately, that's just how I've seen it go. I don't know about you.
Same. Basically, because I know so originally the account that I'm using was kind of my personal one, and was used for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a different page specifically for fishing, but that didn't really take off, because I was like, well, I have to grind it out, where the other one, I still had maybe like 400 followers that can, get a little bit more of a head start. So I turned that with, which what it is now. I've kept the same handle. And I just turned it into a fishing page. But then I realized, well, I do love the outdoors, and that's kind of like what I want to do. So I started posting some hiking videos, some archery videos. Archery content. The archery content, though, surprisingly, has done okay for the times that I've done it. But yeah, like, the only thing that doesn't really do a whole lot, because I tried posting like some fitness posts, and that kind of just the engagement just goes down. And then the very first thing, when you put the hashtags, you get like 20 different comments about like, oh, you want collab, you want collab, you want collab. And it's like, what?
It's all
like,
spam.
Yeah, it's all spam. Yeah. Like, really sketchy accounts. It's like they almost look kind of like a little bit like a bot or whatever.
Right.
So I've noticed with the fitness and even sometimes the cooking, like, those videos don't do well. But anything that's outdoors related, with the minor exception of possibly hiking, and I think that might not necessarily be so much with the hiking posting itself, but it's just that, there's not a whole lot of like landscape here in Texas, so it's like all flat. So I'm very limited, so I have to be extra creative. Some stuff has gotten a good enough, like, that I would consider like a good enough threshold of likes and comments.
Right.
But that one's a little bit hit or miss. But anything that's archery, firearms, and fishing usually does pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like anything fishing, hunting, I feel like those kind of things, if you add that to a profile that's full of fishing, usually that's around the same kind of audience you're already having. But I feel like had I have had a fitness Instagram established and put that up, the people that follow that would have been enthused. You know what I mean? It stinks, because like, if I put it on my story, I'll get a good amount of reactions or comments back or whatever. But yeah, if I add it to my story, it just I don't want to say it flunks, because like, don't get like, it keeps up, but not by much.
No.
I'm not consistent with it, and it's frustrating. But
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the stories I really use more as a way like, hey, if you want to get to know a little bit more about me,
Mhm.
here's the best place to really get to know me. And that's kind of how I've established some kind of relationships with people, like in terms of like very amicable, respectful relationship of like, just like a virtual friend or whatever. And that's how like I've met people here like, oh, you're around this area, like do you want to like meet up? And sometimes that concerns me a little bit because it's like, oh crap, like, but it's based off the what I post.
Right.
And yeah, and so far it's turned out okay. It hasn't been really bad, but yeah, like anytime I post anything fitness related, people like on the stories, like I get a good amount of reaction from people.
Mhm.
Some that are just people I already know, some that I don't know,
Right.
and it's pretty cool. And that's kind of how I do that part,
Mhm.
because like we have this technology, we should be coming closer together, not driving each other or isolating ourselves from each other more.
Right.
And I feel that does happen because I know that in several industries, like it could be a little cliquish,
Mhm.
and I mean that's just normal people. Though I mean we've seen like we've been in high school, like that kind of doesn't really go away. So
Yeah, I think the thing that I've been most stuck on lately is with getting people to engage, creating a caption. Because
hmm
sometimes I could post the most simple, dumbest caption, or even just emojis, and people will engage like crazy if the picture's good. Or I could write this long, thought out caption that's all about mental health or being outdoors. And like some people will actually reply and make me like, I really think they did read the whole thing. And other days I'm like, if it's me, I have days where like, if I see a long caption, if I'm just not in the mood, I'm not reading it. So like, it's hard because like I want to do something in between where it's just like something simple and meaningful. But in the same way, it's like, short and sweet, long and in depth. It just depends on the person reading it, honestly. Well, I
yeah,
come to realize like if the picture is good enough, they're gonna like it either way. That's the part
yeah. And
that's annoying.
what was that?
So that's the part that's annoying is, I mean, sometimes if you have you ever asked someone to take a picture of you with your fish and it comes out like crap? Like
Oh yeah.
if I'm gonna post that, sometimes there's nothing I can literally do. Like, sorry for the crappy quality, guys, but this was my fish. Like, sometimes you don't have a great picture to work with, so.
Yeah, sometimes the people, I mean, there's definitely, and I'm pretty sure because, like you said, you went for fine arts and I mean, what, you kind of like got into photography because of that, or, one or the other,
I
right?
grew up doing photography, but that's why
But
I went for fine arts in college is because of photography. But then I realized I like the business aspect of photography way more.
okay. So, yeah, the point right there is clear that photography is an art form. So, with that being said, the way you take a picture is also an art form because you can, I mean, to get a little, I guess, more in depth, like you can definitely I mean, if you have a camera, you can definitely tell the story the way you want to tell it. You can definitely put an angle that maybe, okay, angle A just shows a fish. Angle
Right.
B gives a little bit, tells a little bit more of a story. It's the same
Mhm.
fish, it's the same landscape, but just the way your angles, you choose your angles, it can tell a whole different story, right? Like, or definitely can give an implication that there's definitely a story behind the picture.
Mhm.
So I'm pretty sure I definitely have learned that because I have a friend who's really big into photography and into marketing. So he's the one that's kind of teaching me all this stuff. So uh, I've learned like, whoa, there's more than just like, hey, take a picture. There's more than just that, you
Yeah,
know?
and especially when you mix photography and fishing. The first like it was probably not it wasn't until like a couple years ago that I even started posting my fishing content. Like I'd post it to my Facebook, but that was just for family and friends and that was it. Like and that was if that. Usually I didn't even post it. But once I started posting it, there was a lot of feedback, like a lot of negative because I just have someone like take a picture of me and I'd have like a landmark in the background and didn't think twice. And then I'd have someone like you're ruining that spot, blah blah blah. Like people get heated because you don't want your fishing spot ruined. So if
Oh
someone
yeah.
a landmark in the background, they're like, "Hey, can you please get a different angle?" But like when I'm in fishing mode, I'm in fishing mode. Like I just want a picture to document whatever. Like if it's a sunfish, cool. Like take a picture. I don't care. But like I don't. usually I don't think with those two things together. Like, to me, if I'm in photography mode, I'm in like business mode. If I'm in fishing mode, I'm in fishing mode. That's like my getaway. So it was hard when I first started posting because I got a lot of negative feedback, like, change the angle of your photo. And I'm like, listen, like, okay, fine. But like after a while, like, you take a picture of the fish in the quickest way possible so you can get it back. Like, I'm not sitting here worried about the angle and the lighting, and like, to me it's like, okay, let's document this quick, get it back. Like, I don't get caught up in angles, and I mean, if I can, I'll grab as many pictures as I can, but usually the longer I sit there snapping, I'm like, okay, like, this is excessive, this fish needs to go back.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it also depends on the kind of fish too. I mean,
right.
I know I got some heat when I posted a trout picture because it was a little sandy.
Yep.
And I didn't realize why until somebody told me. I was like, well, yeah, because they're very delicate fish, and if you're gonna throw it back, you're basically gonna ruin it, or whatever. But granted that I wasn't targeting that fish specifically, I was targeting for bass, right? So it just happened that I caught a trout, and I was excited because it was my first trout, even though I didn't target it. I have no idea how I got the little guy, and I feel kind of bad because I was using a lipless crankbait,
Wow.
and I was just trying to hook him right away, throw him back, and it fell. I mean, I did my best to put it back as safely as possible, and luckily it survived because it did swim away, but like it floated for like 10 seconds. I was like, God dang it, I killed the fish. At that point, I was just gonna scoop it back up and take it home because it was allowed. There's a five fish bag limit on those.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really trying to take it home, at least not in that specific time. But yeah, and then I got a little bit of heat, not a whole lot. It wasn't like nuclear or anything like that, but it was just like, I definitely got some crap. So that's kind of the bad thing, the negatives of having social media is that, it's easier to kind of spread negativity in that sense. But, when it comes to like taking pictures here and there, it's like, yeah, it sucks. Like, you give away a spot, but like, if it's a spot that's already pressured,
yeah,
what's the point? Like,
right. And if it's no one's gonna recognize it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if it's like some kind of hidden spot, like I think I know of a couple of spots that I found on my own that I don't necessarily share with a whole lot of people. I take a picture of me in the background with the water, but it's kind of like at an upward angle, so you can kind of see the sky. You don't see necessarily anything else around it. So still comes out okay, but I'm not necessarily giving away the secret, like it's weird. But it's funny though, like, because now because I used to hike a lot when I was living in California, and now that I'm kind of more into like taking pictures, because that was something kind of that I didn't necessarily do a whole lot, just I don't know, just because I'm kind of weird, and so I recognize the art form in taking pictures, and but it also like brings me joy taking a good picture, even if it's like a suburban river, a urban river or something like that, where you kind of get a really good picture. Don't you kind of get the same feeling like when you're doing your photography, especially you have more scenery available as it it's obvious because of your photography account.
So I moved from Buffalo, which is also that's the city. But there's like a lot of water around there. There's Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, all that, and so there's plenty of water. But unfortunately, most of the water out there does have a landmark in the background. But moving out to where I am now is more towards New York City, but not quite to the city. So like I'm in like the country before the city. So like I'm surrounded by hills, and like everywhere you go, I joked with my mom, everywhere you go and fish or hike is a hike. Like everything's a hill. Like nothing is flat. Like in Buffalo, everything is flat. It's fine. It's great. Like occasionally there's like a little incline. No, everything out here is a hill. Every fishing spot, like it's been good physically because if I'm out and about, it's challenging me at the same time. But I joke that like I'll take this any day because of the scenery. Like you said, it's all flat out near you, and like I mean that can be pretty too. But like these hills around me is just like I don't know. It feels like a painting all the time. So it's fun, and finding out new fishing spots. Like at first I was really discouraged moving out here because like my mental health wasn't in a good place, and I got out of a really toxic relationship, moved out here. I was like, cool. Like I just felt defeated because I had no fishing spots out here, no idea where to go for wildlife photography. Like, it was intimidating more than it was exciting to me because of where my mental health was at. And now that I'm on the other side of that a year later, I'm seeing like all the opportunities in it. And I'm like, oh, like let's go on. Like, I don't usually use Fishbrain, like to post at least. But like going on there, I like zoom out and there's just pond. Like there's ponds everywhere. There's rivers everywhere. There's just like so much opportunity. It's just really pretty to like have all this around me. And
then
like,
capturing it, right?
yeah, because like I could bring my camera too, and like I never know if I should like. Some days I'll have my camera in one hand and my fishing pole in the other, and I like don't know which one to put down versus pick up. I'm like, and I like go back and forth. I don't know. It's a good problem to have.
It really is, and I'm glad that because that's something that I mean, it's the premise of why I started this podcast, and I'm kind of doing it the way I'm doing it. It's because I think the outdoors definitely can help to distract people from problems that they may have. Some may be bigger, too big for the outdoors to distract, but definitely all the little ones for sure. And I think it's just more of a like you get fresh air, you're around, different scenery and stuff. And at the end of the day, I mean, it may sound a little hippie-ish, I guess you could say, but I don't think we were necessarily meant to be around so much concrete, right?
Yeah.
Because the fact that you get so much enjoyment from like just being outdoors, and
Mm-hmm.
some people don't like it, and that's fine. Again, we're not all the same. We're not all the same in terms
Right.
of personality and interests, but there's a lot of people that just go into the park and just laying down on the grass, just sunbathing,
Yeah.
that's good enough. And there's some people that just love hiking in the woods. And I did have a hiker on the podcast, and like she takes amazing pictures like on the mountains, especially because right around the time that I found her on Instagram, she was hiking in the snow, and it was just super gorgeous, right? So, and I think she's still going to the same spots, but now that the snow's basically melted, it looks
Right.
different.
Yeah.
It looks different, and she captures all that, right? And I think that's we need to create memories and capture those good memories, and photography is probably the best way to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
I mean, out here it's been crazy because you wouldn't think that one area could have so many opportunities. Like, I know I've joked with you about New York before and how much the snow and cold is atrocious, but in the same way, like, I've grown to love it. Like, I've
mhm.
grown to love those things. I've grown to love hiking in the snow, even when it's like up to your knees and you're frozen, but like you're still carrying your camera. Like, I don't ice fish at all, just because I don't like being on ice. I don't know, it freaks me out. Um, but like during the winter, I'll take my camera and go for hikes like a couple times a week if I can, because one, it's good for you. Like, if I sit cooped up, my mental health just takes a dive. So even getting out, even when it's cold, keeps my mental health in check. And I'm going out with my camera, so I'm distracted and looking for, when you're going out with your camera, I found it gives you an opportunity to purposely take your mind off things and try to find the beauty in whatever's around you. Because sometimes you'll go out for wildlife and see literally nothing, like not even a bird. And in those moments, you're like, okay, like what can I leave here with a photo of then? Like, you have to find something. Otherwise, you're gonna be like, okay, I just took a 2 hour walk for what? So I don't know. It's just, for me, it comes down to finding the good in every trip, and even with fishing, like today I went out and I bought a bunch of new and random baits that I wanted to put to the test, and it was windy. It was like 15-mile-per-hour winds today. We just had a cold front. It rained last night. Today was awful to fish, like absolutely awful. But at the end of the day, like, it was still beautiful out. It it was nice enough for me to be able to walk around. Like, it wasn't ideal, but at the end of the day, there's still something you can take from it.
Yep. I think we often underrate those trips.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the trips that we take where we don't see a single bird or anything like that. The trips that we take to go fishing, we don't catch a single fish. Sometimes we underrate that, and some people that may not, you know, necessarily fish will look at them like, oh, well, you go out and you didn't catch a fish. Like, why you fish, right? Like, I've gone that a couple times, and it's like, I mean, I know they're not purposely trying to be negative, but it's like, it's like you're missing the point. Like go out and fish and go out and fish and clear your mind, because if you're constantly thinking about like, oh, I'm not gonna like this, I'm not gonna like this, you're putting yourself in that mindset to not like something. Clear your mind, have an open mind with different things, and you never know, like you might get some enjoyment out of it. Like I remember the first time I ever fought a bass was like, it was just like amazing, because the adrenaline was pumping and I'm like, dude, I want more, and like I want to catch more. It was just like, yeah, like it definitely made me realize how much I liked it, to the point that I was even willing to go out at 3:00 in the afternoon in 105 weather, 107 weather out here in Texas. I was out there and I would catch a fish. Sometimes I wouldn't catch anything. And either way, I was just like, I'm out here, I'm working out, and basically putting myself through a sauna. I mean, I'm pretty sure that has its benefits to a certain degree.
Doesn't happen here in New York.
What happened?
I said that doesn't happen here in New York.
Yeah.
I can't relate to that part, but I'll just pretend that I can.
But it's just, one of those things where it's like, I don't know, I enjoy it. Like, and like, that's like, you see that hashtag, what is it? The tug is the drug or something like that. The tug is the drug.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that,
it's for sure.
Yeah. And I had another person that I met through the fishing community, Jarrell. I had him on a podcast, and we talked about that, like how even a bad day of fishing, I mean, the cliche, a bad day of fishing beats a good day at work, right? But we really kind of like emphasize that, because it's like, at the end of the day, we're on the water, we're out there just relaxing, right? I mean, yeah, people drink while they fish. Some people, they'll make it a little drinking day, and I don't personally do that. I don't know. It's not necessarily because I'm against it 100%. It's just that, I don't know. It's just, if I want to have a beer, that's a different thing. Like, I don't want it to like interfere like something like in the outdoors. Maybe with the minor exception of camping, which is something that I definitely do want to incorporate into my content, because I want to make it anything outdoors, because we're going back to the previous topic about like how we're, driving our social media profiles. I basically came to the realization that I do want to kind of be more in the outdoors, I guess, industry, or that space.
Right.
And like camping is something that I do like to do as well. And I just want to post everything and everything. And like the thing that when we're talking about captions, like I'm not going to try to put a story, like a long story, or I'm trying my best not to put a cliche. But I just want to put something that is unique to me, that people haven't really heard a whole lot or heard at all. And it's something to give people encouragement and spread positivity, right? Like there was one time when I basically I had my rod stolen. I think you knew about that, right? Like I made a post about it. And that was probably a pretty long post, but I think
so, yeah.
yeah, because I was getting ready to fish the next day, and then they stole them out of my car. And at the end of the day, I was a little pissed off at the beginning, but then I was just like, you know what? I'm not gonna let it, like, I had a good day the day before, so it definitely helped that I was in a better mindset, like going into that.
Right.
But I was just like, you know what? It's gonna work itself out. Like, we'll see. And at the end of the day, I still had a few fishing rods, so I was able to go fish still. It's not like it kept me from fishing. And I'm working towards replacing those right now. So yeah. But like so back to the caption, sorry. Yeah, so that was probably the longest caption, but I just wanted to kind of make the point that it's like, hey, I had a bad day, but it's not gonna let my weekend go to crap. I'm not gonna let it go to waste. Like I'm not gonna carry that energy into the weekend, because I don't want it to just dim my light,
Right. Yeah.
So
I just feel like it's easy to get caught up in like doing what other people want you to do with your page. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was trying to come up with like what to name my page, because originally it was just n_Wickens. It was just, like I said, just a normal profile. I was like, listen, like I want to post mainly fishing content. I was like, but if I ever decide to do my photography on that too, like I was like, what do I do? And the more I thought about it, like I'm never going to combine them on Instagram, but with my YouTube that I started, I want that to be where I could post like videos of wildlife encounters. If I have it fishing, if I have it something fishing, and I post a wildlife encounter, like I said, that whole marketing thing again, it's going to throw people off. If you put outdoors on there, it sounds cliche, but that could really entail anything, like you said, camping, fishing, hunting, photography, like anything outdoors that goes right into that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
as cliche as it felt to put outdoors at the end and call it a day, like it that is what it is. Like for now it's mainly fishing, but I'd love to now that the buck are starting to get their antlers back out here, I'm excited to go find them and take video of them and put that on my YouTube because I know that's going to be exciting to a lot of people. But if I have only people that follow for fishing, again, usually fishing and hunting, those kind of that audience usually goes together. But by the slim chance someone's like, why is this on my page? Like if I put outdoors there, I just feel like it's like that almost like a comfort zone where it's like, okay, like here's your disclaimer, it could be anything. Take it or leave it.
Well, I mean, so I've thought about that too because I've seen accounts that have whatever outdoors and they only post fishing. I don't see a single thing that's not fishing.
Yeah.
And I thought about it and it's like, well, I mean, technically you're not like false advertising by saying outdoors.
Yeah.
Because, you know, fishing is an outdoors thing. It's an outdoors venue. I mean, outdoors activity. And yeah, so I think at that point, if anybody wants to nitpick, it's really just them either being negative or just having something to want to nitpick about for whatever reason. You know, it really comes down to how you put out your content. I mean, people like if it's one of those things like I guess another to use another cliche, if you build it, they'll come, right?
Yep.
Eventually, you're gonna get the following that respects what you do and appreciates what you do and definitely interacts with you in a very positive way.
Right.
I think that's kind of the mentality we need to have when we go over there because a lot of people want to get the insta fame, like they want to be the next person this, the next person that, and can't even tell you how many times I've talked about this, but that I think personally, like you get caught up in that, and then you kind of like stress yourself out because like, oh, what's the next what the like I'm trying to put out content, pump out content, and again, we don't want to really stress ourselves with stuff that we can control. Like we can control how we take our direction in our social media space. I mean, in general, that's I think something that we can all gather just as in general, like throughout everything. Like when we cook, we're the ones that we drive the way the plate's gonna be. We're the ones that drive how it's gonna taste. We're the ones that like we can follow a recipe, sure, to the T. But at the end of the day, you can still play around with that recipe, and there's always room for that, right? So that's one of the things that I do like about cooking. Also, like the reason why I kind of chose my handle as New Age Alchemist. Well, one, it was my gamer tag that I've been using forever, and two, it's because over time, first of all, I thought it sounded kind of cool, I guess. And I'm gonna sound a little lame by saying that, but I thought it was cool and I thought it was different. Then somebody pointed out like, oh, there's an anime called Full Metal Alchemist, and I was like, I've never seen it before in my life. And when I saw it, I'm like, okay, that kind of fortified why I chose this name. And then there's also the book called The Alchemist, and that's also another reason why that's kind of where it gave me that idea, because the word alchemist or alchemy is kind of an older term to basically represent science before we actually had science, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that I kind of live by now, where it's like, if you want to like just to take the literal metaphor of it, well, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, the literal interpretation of it, like when you do alchemy, it was mostly to turn lead and mercury into gold. That was the whole purpose, right? So based off the anime that I just described, it's like they talk about the law of alchemy, where it's like, in order to create something, you have to put something of equal value in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of resonated with me because now I'm like, okay, in order to create a good memory, I have to put in good energy. I have to put in the good amount of time. I have to get, if I want to round up people, to make it better, it's going to require more effort. Same thing with cooking. Like specifically in cooking, like I have my other accounts called All Cooking is Alchemy for that reason, because you can't just make a steak out of thin air, right?
Right.
To produce a good steak, you got to start with a raw steak,
Mhm.
right? So you got to put in good ingredients to get good food.
Right.
You got to put in good energy to you got to surround yourself with good energy to put out good energy. Same thing,
Mhm.
and that's kind of like where if you want something, you got to put work in it, and it'll materialize itself in something. So that's kind of where that came from.
Mhm. No, that's pretty cool because I've been wondering what the heck your name meant on there. Like, I knew there had to be not a definition, but an explanation. So that's pretty cool. And
Yeah,
then
it's something that developed over time.
was your gamer handle?
Yeah, like
I
I said, I thought,
feel like I had like a gamer handle back in the day, and then they just stuck with it for the rest of their life.
yeah, like I'm not gonna change my name to that ever. Like, I'm not gonna be like that. But like, because I've seen people that change their name to like their gamer tag, and I'm just like, what? Okay,
I feel like a lot of people do that.
yeah, there you go. I've only seen a few. I wasn't really much of a gamer too, so it's like, all right, I'll just stick with it. And yeah, so that's the reason why I haven't put outdoors in front of it or anything like that. Like I'll put outdoorsman in like, the bio, but
Yeah.
because yeah, it's like I like, especially now with the podcast, I like sharing good stories. Um, that doesn't necessarily mean like I don't share I've had a few guests that shared like traumatic experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's purely because of the purpose of talking about all aspects of mental health. And like I really want to share that because at the very least, I want to let people know if the following grows and everything, that you're not alone, right? Like you may have a different issue or different situation, but at the end of the day, like there's still issues that plague people. And also, I just got tired of things not being talked about in the mainstream. So
Mm-hmm. I
yeah,
think as much as I talk about like not wanting to add in anything on my feed that's like different than usual or whatever, like that's the one thing that I'm avid about. If I have a feeling like, okay, I need to post something regarding mental health, if I can't tie it into a fishing picture, I'm posting it no matter what. Like,
mm-hmm.
I really, not to go religious, but I feel like sometimes God gives me like these little pushes where it's like, okay, like I really think you need to post about this. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times that's paid off where I've posted something, whether it was super in depth or super simple, just like a nudge, like, your mental health matters, or you're not alone with your anxiety. And I'll end up with 5 or 6 people in my messages either saying thank you, which isn't why I do it, or just saying that they can relate. And like to me, like that makes having my entire page worth it. Like as fun as it is interacting with people about fishing, like I found the more that I am open and vulnerable with what I'm going through, whether it was my breakup and posting stupid sappy quotes about a breakup, or posting about mental health or depression, PTSD, anxiety, whatever I've posted about, I've found that even though it may come across obnoxious if you post it too often all the time, usually if someone's doing that, like they're going through it. Like
Mm-hmm.
that shouldn't be a reason to be like to hate on them, but rather than to reach out. But I found that like sometimes if I come across something that's like a quote about overcoming anxiety or something that's like helpful about mental health, whether I can relate or not, sometimes I put it to my story because you don't really know who can. And it could just like lead to doors where like a door will open and you can sit and have those talks with someone in depth rather than on your story like publicly. If you post something very simple, someone else could reach out to you, be like, hey, like I'm going through that too, and it could lead to a whole conversation that could change someone's life.
Yeah, yeah. We again, that's another thing we underestimate, like how much of an impact saying hello to someone, or
Mm-hmm.
in your case, like seeing that these patterns, right, of like some stuff that they post,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we miss it because sometimes like I've posted stuff about where like um cutting off like toxic relationships can be looked at as like, oh, you're being whiny or you're being like, you're really insensitive. It's like, no, you don't really need that. Like you don't.
Yeah. Who you put around you is it can that's detrimental to your health. I mean,
Yeah.
your friends, your friend circle. I joke that like if I'm gonna date someone, I am very closely paying attention to their friend circle because that will directly impact me. And a lot of people find that to be very dramatic, but it's really not. Like I can't remember the statistic I read, like something about like the 5 people closest to you, you're like kind of like a mix of all of them. And in all reality, like that does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think about it. I'm around my parents nonstop. I pick up on like things my mom does. Like I get it, they're parents. But then I think about like my closest friends, and like there's a lot that I pick up on, whether it's mannerisms, how they talk. Like growing up, my friend circle directly impacted my crappy language now, and like it's a habit. So like they directly impacted me, and I feel like people underestimate who you surround yourself with, like how much that really matters. Like people that uplift you are going to help you with your mental health. They're going to help. They're going to check on you, make sure you're doing okay. Like I get it. Like I don't. There's some of my best friends I don't talk to all the time. It could be maybe once every other week or every couple. But when I do, I'm like going in depth with like, how are you? Like really, how are you? How is your mental health? Like not just like these surface level questions and then cool, have a good day. Like I don't know. I just feel like it's so important to be aware of who's around you.
Yeah, and you know what? So I'm pulling up my phone right now because there's a very interesting I guess you can say quote. It's a meme, but I think that's the
And
modern day quotes, right? Yeah.
that's official.
Yeah, it's official, right? But there's a lot of substance in this, and I'm gonna go ahead and read it really quick.
Okay.
Confidence has to be built from within. If you build it on compliments, it will be broken on criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is like, dude, like it has a massive amount of substance, like because it's. I mean, I think it's to a certain degree. No, I think it's almost 100%, if not 100%, like true. Like like that's one of the things that I may have not have talked about so much, but I kind of want to start talking about a little bit more. Is that one of those things like we got to mentally fortify ourselves, and that's where we you know fortify our self-esteem, pump up our confidence.
Right.
It helps, right? And yeah, because especially being in a public space, I would imagine that celebrities have a tough time doing this. You're not used to being under the spotlight for whatever reason. Granted, we're not big celebrities or anything like that, but we're growing accounts, and we're in a public space, and at a certain point there's going to be people that are going to be throwing shade for whatever reason, and sometimes either they're hurt themselves or sometimes they just get enjoyment for some whatever reason. It's hard to really judge. I mean, it's easier just to kind of be like, all right, well, let's just write them off and not worry about it, and that has its benefits. So
Yeah, the thing that I've been really zoning in on lately is like with TikTok, seeing accounts where like someone will post like, oh, I just hit blah blah blah, like a milestone, like a million followers. And when I hear people say like, oh, I can't believe I did this in just 6 months, the thing that like the way I think of it is I've officially hit 11,000 on TikTok, 11,000 followers, and like I don't even know what to do with that. Like if I hit 1 million and like I've had mine for a year and it took me that long. And I'm sure that these people that have hit 1 million that quick, they probably had one video go viral and got the majority of those followers then. But the thing to me is like I would rather grow slowly, because if I was to just dive in to having that many followers, I would be overwhelmed. Like I don't think my mental health could handle that. And like I've seen and like read stories about people who go viral too quick and their mental health crashes. Like because it's too much. It's a huge, I don't know if responsibility is the word, but like when you have a following, like we have a couple thousand followers on Instagram, like we have an opportunity to do something with that. And like how serious we take it or how far we take it, like that's up to you and that's up to me. But overall, like these people that have like huge followings, like that's a lot of pressure. And like there's this girl on Instagram that I follow and she's a Christian, and I can't even explain to you, like if she posts a video that has a viral song in it that has one like swear word, she gets like condemned for it. Like everyone's like, you're not a Christian, and like I would not want that kind of pressure any day. So like I kind of go between like, let's go big with fishing and like let's kind of stay under the radar. Because I don't know, I don't want to lose that spark that makes it fun for me. And growing slowly is nice. too much at once, I just feel like that would ruin it for me.
So I think and just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, because we're approaching the 1 hour mark, and it's okay if we go a little bit more. But I think we need to be okay with, like, I mean, this applies to real life. Like, we need to be okay with like losing followers like on social media, right? Because at the end of the day, having so many followers, again, we go back to 350 million people and different personalities, and they're not always going to be the same. It gets harder and harder to please every single one of your followers, right? Like, to please every single person, it gets that much harder. And it's not that you're trying to, yeah, it's not going to happen. And it's not like you're trying to, sometimes, like, maybe something that some other person might take offense to. You're not necessarily trying to offend somebody. It's just that you didn't know that was going to, be offensive. Like,
right.
And I mean, it goes both ways, right? Like, if a person wants to put themselves out there, they need to also understand that there's going to be criticism coming from it. It may not be deserved. It may be deserved. It's just going to happen. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. So, yes, we can do what we can to protect ourselves from it, but at the same time, sometimes we need to just go straight head on and try to, like, stare that son of a bitch in the face and just punch it or something. Like, now I'm not saying, like, promoting violence, but and it goes with like people in life, right? Like, you don't want to have, I've learned that, again, I'm a little weird, so I can't really use myself as like a gold standard or anything like that, but like, I have a weird issue with establishing relationships and stuff like that, so like friendships and things like that. And like, the more I have, the more anxiety I get. It's kind of similar to what you were talking about with the TikTok followers.
I keep my circle really small. Otherwise, I feel like if I've got too big of a circle, I can't focus on certain people and give them, like, what's the word? Not quality, like quantity. No, I don't know the word, but like, I want to be able to give. Like, if I've got 5 people in front of me, I want to be able to give them each my all. But the more you like divide that among people, like, you would just lose that connection. It just becomes more like keeping up rather than like keeping up to date, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Because it's like one of those things where, like, sometimes, like, and I've seen this with so many people that they're trying to be nice, and that's perfectly fine if you're trying to be nice for somebody, but at a certain point, you need to be able to handle that. If you attract that many bees with honey, you're gonna have to deal with that many freaking bees. Like, like, sometimes, like, you may do something that you don't try to upset somebody with, but again, because you only have so many hours during the day, you only have so much mental, mental currency to spend on people.
Right.
You don't, like, it's really hard to spread on a bunch of people. I mean, granted, you have years and years and years of time, but still, it's difficult. But that doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, sorry, I already have my 5-friend limit, like, I'm not going to talk to you. That also doesn't mean that as well, right? That's like the opposite extreme. So there's a balance that needs to really be achieved, and that's really difficult.
I think it's also really hard because, like, myself, I'm an introvert for sure. And like, I have my moments where like I can be an extrovert, but like I wear out so quick. So like, I joke because on Instagram, like, I'll keep up with a bunch of DMs, or like I'll write back like 10 people, and then like I could be like on fire for like 3 days, and then I just like wear out, and then I don't write them back for like a week, sometimes more. Like, I just go in these spurts because like I can't keep up, even though it may only be 10 people, and maybe they just did something as simple as like react to my story. Like, I still want to be able to put that energy in to just say thank you for interacting, or be like, hey, thanks, like, how's it going? Like, and if you just the more people you add to that, it's hard. Like, these big creators, I don't know if you follow Famous Fisherman on TikTok. Like, he's someone that I really look up to on there, because like he goes out of his way to make sure he's replying to people, and like he gives like genuine responses. They're not just like cliche, like send a thumbs up in response to something. Like he has like interactions with you. Like, he'll keep up, like he goes out of his way. And like, there's a handful of people that, especially in the fishing community, are really good at like keeping up with their followers, and I don't know how they do it because I can't even reply to like 20 comments on one of my photos, and like they're replying as much as they can, and like you can just tell. But like at some point, like you've got to wear yourself thin with that, you know?
Yeah, it's to use a metaphor of like lifting. Like you can't just attempt to lift 100 pounds over your head right off the bat. You got to slowly work up to it, and it's the same thing with like being able to have the capacity to be able to like respond to so many people and stuff like that. You gotta I think there's just ways to train yourself to that kind of pressure almost, because it's a pressure that not a lot of people are really equipped to handle right off the bat. Some people like knock it out of the park. Some people crash and burn, and I think it's really tough. But at least the important thing is that like we're at least putting out good energy. Like if people are attracted to it, that's great. Like honestly, that's a good problem to have, really. Like better to like attract a lot of people with your good energy than to put off and piss off a bunch of people for your bad energy, or just promoting negativity, right? I think that's the better. But all right, so anyway, we'll end off on that. So it's about the 1 hour mark. Any last final thoughts that you might have? A few more minutes. Anything you want to like highlight?
No, I mean, I guess like you said, what you put out there really does come back around. With the fishing community, I think it's important to set a goal and just grind towards it. I don't want to say as fast as you can, because I mean, even if you set a follower mark of what your goal is, it's taken me a year just to hit 2,500. So if not more, maybe 2 years, I don't know. So I guess just be patient. I mean, to persevere, you've really got to be patient and just keep grinding. Don't let people throw rocks in your path and then stumble over them and then get confused. Like if people are throwing rocks, at least they're looking your way, I guess.
Yeah.
It could be worse. So I don't know, but thank you for doing these, because I mean, mental health wise, I definitely think that it's not talked about enough. So I think it's important to really get the scoop on like different people and see how they, I don't know if manage is the right word, but just kind of see how people cope with and manage through their everyday anxieties, whether it's fishing, hunting, anything outdoors, cooking. Everyone has like their go-to, most everyone, and I just think it's important to find an outlet. That's been my go-to, is just figuring out my outlet. If it's not photography, it's fishing. If it's neither of those, I'm resting. Like a rest day. So
yeah, no, that's very good. Yeah, so I mean, it's something that just because of what happened with last year with the pandemic and everything, I was a little upset that suicides were going up and all that stuff, all that bad stuff, and people were not addressing it. People were barely even acknowledging it. So it was something that I was already kind of passionate about, but I never really like made it like apparent, or I never really got really preachy on that. But just that's the whole focus of this. And also to have fun, like if there's something that people might want to like look into, like fishing, archery, whatever, I'm hoping that they get some inspiration, but again, at the end of the day, it's like nobody knows what's best for themselves but themselves. So but my final thought is basically so I think regardless of the space, just be mindful of people that might take the grifters, I guess you can call them. Be mindful of the grifters, but don't be too guarded that you might, discard a meaningful relationship or a meaningful contact in the future. It's a really tough balance to really achieve. I'm not going to preach and say that I've achieved it. I don't think I have, but it's something that I'm working towards. And most importantly, just, if you're doing something, make sure you do it because you want to. And if it makes money, great. If it doesn't, at the very least, it's keeping you busy and it's de-stressing you. So that's, my final thought. But well, again, Nikki, thank you for, coming on.
Yeah.
So I will put on YouTube, you can see your handle right off the bat right there in the little banner. For those that are listening, her Instagram account is n_Wickins, WICKINS. @Nick_outdoors. And yeah, so maybe you can come back for another, round 2 of another discussion. We can talk about other topics and such.
Yeah,
But I definitely, I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I said that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate you coming on and spending some time and having this conversation. I think it was a great one. So
Yeah.
yeah. So really quick, I'm gonna pause the recording, but don't hop off yet.
Okay.
And yeah, so for those that are watching, they're still watching and still listening, I appreciate you guys. And yeah, see you for the next episode.